We have major breaking news right now, complete chaos in the White House over the fact that the Epstein files discharge petition may hit 218 signatures. They just called an emergency meeting, according to CNN, of top Justice Department officials, including Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, the Attorney General Pam Bondi, and Kash Patel, the FBI Director, alongside Lauren Boebert. Donald Trump has personally called both Lauren Boebert and Nancy Mace in an effort to try to have them remove their names from the Epstein discharge petition. They're two of the four Republicans who have signed on. The other two are Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene, neither of whom have signed or will remove their names. But there is a full court press happening right now as increased panic within the White House sets in that the Epstein files may soon become public, or that the House of Representatives may soon vote, a full House of Representatives vote, on whether to release the files publicly.
Again, what's your response to that?
My response is simple. Then release all the files. If the president has nothing to hide, if the press secretary right there in her comments and statement, if they have nothing to hide at the White House or the Department of Justice, then all we want is for them to release the full files.
If Trump knew what was coming, he would not be telling people to open the government up. That is for sure. But the way he's acting right now, because the American internet waves are buzzing louder. Every news channel, every news media is literally covering this up because of the, those emails, the Epstein emails that are leaking right now, implicating him. But my goodness, the White House is in panic mode. But I think the people that are so much more in panic mode are Caroline Levitt. I have not seen that lady panic like on national media. But the interviews that they were taking from her, the breathing, everything was obvious. The way they are literally pressing and forcing people to take their signatures off. That Congress lady that was supposed to be sworn in too, yes, got sworn in. And she's saying, it's about to get good. I don't know how I'm going to report on this. Hopefully I'm able to arrange the clips, because I'm going to be putting individual clips of people, news media clips, breaking news. I want us to look at this, because when the Dems caved in, everybody was like, but I feel like they have something stronger. And we need to look at it. Yeah, we'll be back with more. Let me know if you've seen this. What do you think about it? I'll be back with more. Don't forget to like, share.
Well. So according to reporting, Daddy Dumpy Pants has a bit of the blues. That's why he hasn't been on his not-so-trues. Instead, he has called an emergency meeting, dear, in the White House. He wants the members of his DOJ to get there expeditiously, like Brimstone Blanchard and Satan Cindy Lou Who, because Daddy don't know what to do. And a matter of fact, he's calling members of the GOP today, begging them not to throw their vote that way to have those files released. Ooh, but Creepy Peepy said it was nothing more than a publicity stunt. Some stunt, dear, because the orange cunt doesn't want to open back up the government. He wants to put it on pause. That's right. He's telling the GOP, put everything on pause today until I can convince everybody to stand behind me, the pedo that I am, and not vote for those files to be on display. So don't be surprised at all when the government doesn't open back up today.
Breaking news rocking Washington, D.C. Never before seen emails released this morning by Democrats on the House Oversight Committee, raising new questions about President Trump's relationship with convicted trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. The emails provided to Congress by the Epstein estate show private correspondence between Epstein and his accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell, and between Epstein and author Michael Wolff, with multiple references to Trump, all raising more questions about what Trump knew and when. Epstein writing in a 2011 email to Maxwell that Trump, quote, spent hours at his house with a trafficking victim. Epstein calls Trump in this email a, quote, dog that hasn't barked. We should note it's not clear what exactly Epstein meant by those comments. Let's bring in MSNBC Justice and Intelligence reporter Ken Delanian. Ken, take us through what these emails say and their significance.
Good morning, Anna. Well, the one you just read is perhaps the most important one because it was written by Jeffrey Epstein in 2011, long before Donald Trump's political career. And he used the phrase, the dog that hasn't barked. That's a phrase from a Sherlock Holmes story suggesting a clue. And he says that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Redacted name of a victim, spent hours at my house with him. He's never once been mentioned. And then he uses the phrase police chief, etc. So these emails, essentially what they do is they raise new questions about Donald Trump's longstanding contention that he had no knowledge of Jeffrey Epstein's massive trafficking operation. These emails suggest that they don't suggest that Donald Trump was part of it. They suggest, though, that he may have known about it. There was another email written years later to Michael Wolff, the author from Jeffrey Epstein. And the context here appears to be about Jeffrey Epstein being kicked out of the Mar-a-Lago golf club. Epstein says, Trump said he asked me to resign. Never remember ever. And then he adds, of course, he knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop. And then the third email is between Wolff and Epstein, and it's about Wolff telling Epstein that he believes that Trump will be asked in an interview. This is in 2015 as he's running for president, about his relationship with Epstein. And Epstein asked Wolff, if I were able to craft an answer for him, what do you think it should be? Now, that, of course, suggests that Epstein would be in communication with Trump and would be helping him craft an answer to a media question. And then Wolff answers, I think you should let himself. If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the House, then that gives you a valuable PR and political currency. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you, or if it really looks like he could win, you could save him generating a debt. So again, that suggests that Wolff and Epstein believe that Trump was more involved or has more knowledge of Epstein's operation than he was letting on. Again, none of this is definitive, but this adds to the picture and adds to the questions that both Republicans and Democrats have about what exactly Donald Trump knew about Jeffrey Epstein's crimes and his sex trafficking of both minors and non-minors.
Reagan. In transparency, Caroline, why are White House officials then meeting with Representative Boebert in an effort to try and get her to not sign this petition calling for the release of the files?
Doesn't it show transparency that members of the Trump administration are willing to brief members of Congress whenever they please? Doesn't that show our level of transparency? Doesn't that show the level of transparency when we are willing to sit down with members of Congress and address their concerns? That is, that's a defining factor of transparency. That's a defining factor of transparency. Having discussions with members of Congress about various issues, and I'm not going to detail conversations that took place in the Situation Room, in the press briefing room.
White supremacist Nick Fuentes says MAGA is dead. Is it? And if it is dead, is it because Donald Trump wants to bring in 600,000 Chinese students because he doesn't think Americans are talented enough? Or will it be the Epstein ties that... In a new email that just dropped, we're seeing an exchange between Jeffrey Epstein and Thomas Landon Jr., in which Epstein says that after 2 years of dating her, he gave his 20-year-old girlfriend to Donald Trump. And Donald Trump absolutely did date this woman. This article is from 2025, and in 2016, The Cut did a piece about how Donald Trump was allegedly on a date with this woman when he met Melania, into a party at the Kit Kat Club that was hosted by Paolo Zampoli. Remember that name? And that is where he first saw Melania. He tried to give her his number, but Melania refused because, again, he was on a date with another woman. Trump then broke up with this woman and started dating Melania, who would become his future wife. And Paolo Zampoli would become a close personal friend of Donald Trump and the Trump Organization. He is currently serving as the United States Special Representative for Global Partnerships. Yes, another person from Epstein world that's made its way into Donald Trump's second administration. Trump is apparently meeting with his cabinet in the Situation Room right now about the leak of these Epstein files because it appears that Trump's attempt to threaten Lauren Boebert into revoking her vote to release the Epstein files has failed. She claims that yes, he did try to pressure her to change her vote, and she feels more entrenched and more dedicated to voting yes to release the files than ever because of it. Trump is also trying to pressure Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nancy Mace, and Thomas Massie to change their votes. The Democrats on the Oversight Committee will continue to release the information that they have, and Trump will continue to try to deny it. But it's clear that MAGA is falling apart in its alliance to him. A lot of these people ran on releasing the Epstein files and breaking up corruption, or ran on the so-called America First platform, which is something that Donald Trump has not been able to deliver on. I don't know. We'll have to keep watching, see what happens.
We have some very shocking breaking news. Thomas Massie just announced the FBI has been holding on to their own client list of at least 20 people tied to Jeffrey Epstein's operations. Kash Patel knew about this list, hid it from the American people, and then lied to us saying there was no list at all. Check this out.
These documents in FBI possession, your possession, detail at least 20 men, including Mr. Jess Staley, CEO of Barclays Bank, at least 19 other individuals, one Hollywood producer, worth a few $100 million, one royal prince, one high-profile individual in the music industry, one very prominent banker.
He also includes a former high-profile U.S. politician, the owner of a foreign car company in Italy, as well as one rock star, one magician, and 6 other billionaires. If this is true, then it means the U.S. government has been knowingly withholding information from the American people that connects some of the most powerful people in the world to Jeffrey Epstein. This case has never just been about one man like Donald Trump and Kash Patel want you to think it is. It's always been about who he was protecting, why he was protecting them, and who was protecting him. The FBI's credibility is already hanging on by a thread, especially with Kash Patel in charge. Now we're learning they've been sitting on a list of at least 20 names of people connected with Jeffrey Epstein while telling the general public this case is closed. He was operating all by himself.
Continue to say that it's Republicans who are keeping the Epstein files hidden, but Congressman Tim Burchett is just reporting that he tried to bring a release of the Epstein files to the floor immediately, and Democrats blocked it. Do you have any insight as to what happened there and why?
When was that?
He just reported it just about 4 minutes ago.
I tried to do a UC, unanimous consent, of try to get the Epstein files, get it straight to the floor, just to cut out all this nonsense, and and the Democrats blocked it, oddly enough.
Look, I think it's incredibly clear that Republicans will stop at nothing to avoid the disclosure of this information. So what that means is 218 signatures were reached despite White House efforts, even at the 11th hour, to summon people down to the White House to try to get them to remove their signatures. Those members said no. And so our rules indicate at 218, members get a vote. And so that's what we're looking forward to. We're not looking for people to avoid taking a vote on this. And that's what that effort was. That is a weak effort to try to allow Republicans to pass this measure without being accountable and showing whether they support this or not. So let's call the vote. The discharge process has its rules. Let's bring the question up. Nothing prevents the Speaker from bringing this up tomorrow if he wanted it done. But if he drags it out, and if the will of those that bipartisan coalition holds, we will have this before us in a couple weeks. But we're interested in every member in this chamber putting their vote up, either yes or a no.
Of course he knew about the girls. Of course he knew about the girls. That is Jeffrey Epstein in an email to a reporter saying that Donald Trump was asking Ghislaine Maxwell, who is in prison for her crimes, by the way, to stop stealing the children from his spa for them. Okay? This little email dump should put to bed any notion of plausible deniability. For MAGA conservatives, too, supporters of this president and their administration, this is the beginning of the end of your time of putting your head in the sand and saying, he couldn't have possibly been involved in this. Maybe he didn't. You should be fucking furious about this, the way that we are, the way that we have been. While we're on the subject, MAGA conservative Americans, if the time comes where the information in these files are released and they are as bad as we all think that they are, and the idea of impeachment and removal from office comes across the Republican-led administration's desk, and they all collectively say, no, we're not going to do that. You need to preemptively pick a side when that decision comes. You're going to either continue to side with the people that have not taken a vote on this, on releasing these files for this exact reason, and continue to side with the people protecting the most disgusting people on Earth, or you're going to side with people that want to hold the most disgusting people on Earth accountable for their crimes, potentially. Just something to think about.
Not enough people are talking about this, but in one of the Epstein emails, he says he advised Russian officials on how to deal with Donald Trump. Epstein says Churkin was great. He understood Trump and our conversations. It is not complex. He must be seen to get something. It's that simple. He's referring to Vitaly Churkin, a Russian diplomat who was the former permanent representative of Russia to the United States. The person he's emailing replies saying, I'll meet Lavrov's assistant on Monday and I will suggest, thank you for a lovely evening. They're referring to this guy who's also a Russian diplomat, specifically the Minister of Foreign Affairs on the Russian Federation. Epstein replies saying, I think you might suggest to Putin that Lavrov can get insight on talking to me, saying that Churkin used to before he passed away. Obviously, here he's referring to Trump. A lot of people have said Trump has been very hesitant to call out Putin for committing war crimes. Could this be the reason? It's crazy because these emails aren't speculation or political commentary. They are Epstein's own words. And he's describing himself as someone who's advising Russia on how to handle the president of the United States. Epstein wasn't just name-dropping here. He was referencing interactions with Russian diplomats. And whatever he told them to do to Trump is clearly working because he has been extremely weak on handling Putin.
We have some big news right now. Mike Johnson is responding to the Bombshell Epstein-related documents that were released this morning showing that Donald Trump knew of Epstein's crimes and spent time with a victim at Jeffrey Epstein's house. Mike Johnson is saying that this is just a way to mislead the public. He went on to say that this is merely a publicity stunt being done by Democrats on the same day that House Republicans are set to reopen the government. But here's the thing, the survivors, they deserve better. They deserve answers. There are dozens of survivors of Epstein and Maxwell's horrific crimes that have wanted answers from the Trump Department of Justice. The Justice Department has refused to release over 100,000 pages of documents with Donald Trump's name on them. Many of them Donald Trump's name on them. And so we're going to see what happens next. Adelaide Grijalva Grijalva will be sworn in today at around 4 p.m. She'll be the 218th signatory on the discharge petition. That'll force a full vote of the House. But Johnson is saying this is just a distraction. We'll see what happens next. As always, spread the word. Full updates on my Substack, linked in bio. Subscribe for free.
The President of the United States has a domestic violence survivor in a meeting right now where he is bullying her into not releasing information that ties him to the world's most infamous file, Jeffrey Epstein. That's right. Donald Trump is trying to shake down Lauren Boebert so that she does not vote to allow the release of the Epstein files today. So first, let's take a look at the emails that came out today. These emails are not being released by the Department of Justice in any kind of transparency move from the Trump administration. Rather, these emails were provided by the Epstein estate to the Democrats on the Oversight Committee. That's why we're getting this information. Email number 1 from 2011. And the White House didn't deny that this happened, but they claimed that the victim, whose name had been redacted, is Virginia Giuffre. Conveniently, Virginia Giuffre is the only person to have said that she never had an actual encounter with Donald Trump. Jeffrey Epstein trafficked thousands of girls to hundreds of men. Pretty convenient that you say, oh, that victim name, that's Virginia, the woman who killed herself because of the pressure that she faced and who under duress said she never had an experience with Donald Trump. We have a little editorial on the second email from Jed here. This email exchange is between Jeffrey Epstein and his lawyer, Kathy Rumler, who one time was White House counsel to President Barack Obama. She was also associate counsel for President Clinton. Here, she is sending Jeffrey Epstein an email of a New York Times article talking about Donald Trump's high crimes and misdemeanors. Remember, this was about Donald Trump lying to banks to get more favorable terms by inflating the value of his properties? And over here, Epstein says, you see, I know how dirty Donald is. My guess is that non-lawyers and New York business people have no idea. And then finally, there's an email exchange between the author Michael Wolff, who has done several different books on Jeffrey Epstein, and Epstein himself. It appears that here, Michael Wolff was asking Epstein if there's any questions he should bring up to Donald Trump. And Epstein says, you want to be provocative? Trump shuttle, Hawaiian tropic contests, the mortgage on Mar-a-Lago, revenue of his golf courses as income, total debt. People don't want to give him money because he says he's worth over $10 billion. Why should they give him money? Father brought chips into the casino to stave off bankruptcy. Chips because it was better than first lien under the gambling rules. Ask about Matt, his bagman, his loan from his brother-in-law, the judge's husband. How much did his father leave? And ask about his brother Robert. Robert died in 2020, but prior to that, he had been the president of Trump Organization. He's also rumored to be the person who negotiated all of Donald Trump's entertainment and sports contracts. He was also in charge of the casino in Atlantic City. The vote to release the full Epstein files is today sometime after 4 p.m., and it should go through so long as Lauren Boebert doesn't change her vote after being personally threatened by the president.
We have breaking news right now. I just spoke to Congressman Ro Khanna, who tells me what happens next now that Adelita Grijalva has been sworn in and has signed the Epstein files discharge petition. Here's what you need to know about next steps and when we will have a full House vote on releasing the Epstein. Well, let's talk about the mechanics of the discharge petition. So you have 218 signatures. You're going to have this vote in 7 legislative days. What happens next? What do people need to know about the actual kind of next steps here?
Oh, look, I don't think Speaker Johnson will play games on this, but he could. I mean, in past discharge petitions, they have tried to say, look, we're going to get rid of the discharge petition's ability to force a vote. It has not worked in the past unless the person themselves has withdrawn the discharge petition. So in Representative Luna's case, she was saying that if someone is pregnant, they should be able to vote remotely. She got over 218 signatures on that. And Johnson tried to maneuver so that it didn't come for a vote. They made some compromise with her that she withdrew the petition itself because Johnson was unable to get his own caucus to get the votes to override the discharge petition. I think it would be very poor politics for him to try that. I would just tell the president I tried everything I could. Now it's up to the Senate, but we need to be vigilant on that. If not, after 7 days, we will get a vote in the Congress. Now, it's important, 7 legislative days. Congress, as people have figured out, doesn't work these days a lot around here. They keep shutting down Congress. So one way they could extend this is just not having that many legislative days. But it's 7 legislative days until we get.
These emails that were revealed today do not explicitly implicate Donald Trump in any crimes. And I think it's important to note that his name is mentioned in these emails. And it does raise questions about what he knew of Jeffrey Epstein's actions. Congressman, we're just getting a first reaction now from the White House to the release of these emails. This statement coming from the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt. I'm going to read it to you in full. The Democrats selectively leaked emails to the liberal media to create a fake narrative to smear President Trump. The unnamed victim referenced in these emails is the late Virginia Giuffre, who repeatedly said President Trump was not involved in any wrongdoing whatsoever and couldn't have been friendlier to her in their limited interactions. The fact remains that President Trump kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of his club decades ago for being a creep to his female employees, including Giuffre. These stories are nothing more than bad faith efforts to distract from President Trump's historic accomplishments. And any American with common sense sees right through this hoax and clear distraction from the government opening back up again. What's your response to that?
My response is simple. Then release all the files. If the president has nothing to hide, if the press secretary right there in her comments and statement, if they have nothing to hide at the White House or the Department of Justice, then all we want is for them to release the full files. It's very clear. You can't spend your entire campaign saying you're going to do something and make a commitment to the American people and then backtrack. And so we're going to ensure, one, we always are going to protect the victims and survivors. And if they want to clear the president's name, and more importantly, also all of the other men and powerful men that may have been involved, then release the files.
Speaker Johnson purposefully obstructed my swearing in by canceling vote after vote. And the Epstein files discharge petition sat one signature short. With my signing, we move one step closer to the truth that they will try to deny, but that survivors deserve their day of justice and the American people demand.
That you take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which you are about to enter, so help you God.
I do.
A few moments later.
Our democracy only works when everyone has a voice. This includes the millions of people across the country who have experienced violence and exploitation, including Liz Stein and Jessica Michaels, both survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse. They are here in the gallery with us this evening. Thank you for being here. Just this morning, House Democrats released more emails showing that Trump knew more about Epstein's abuses than he previously acknowledged. It's past time for Congress to restore its role as a check and balance on this administration and fight for we, the American people. We need to fight for our immigrant communities and veterans. We need to stand up for our public schools, children, and educators. We need to respect tribal sovereignty in our environment. We need to stand up for LGBTQ+ rights because that's what the American people expect us to do. Fight for them. That is why I will sign the discharge petition right now to release the Epstein files. Justice cannot wait another day. Adelante, mi gente. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. I yield back.
We have some major news. The White House is in chaos this morning as the backlash over the Epstein files continues to grow. Donald Trump has not publicly made a statement on his Truth Social account in more than 17 hours. Overnight, when asked about it in the Oval Office as he was signing the government shutdown reopening bill, he refused to answer. Meanwhile, the public is seeing more files released by the House Oversight Committee that suggest a much closer relationship between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. Files that show Jeffrey Epstein trying to communicate with senior government officials in the Russian government to help them understand Donald Trump. Files showing that Jeffrey Epstein said that he spent the first Thanksgiving of Trump's presidency in 2017 in Palm Beach with Trump, and much more. I'm going to continue combing through them. There are 23,000 of them. I've gone through many of them, and I'll highlight a lot of them for you throughout the day. But this is a crisis like no other for the White House.
They are going to jail. Stephen Bannon was right. They are going to jail. If the midterms come and they don't win, and 2028 comes and they don't win, they know. They know their end. Because, can you, I'm trying. That lying Levitt, the woman keeps digging her own grave. To an extent now she's not hiding it. And guys, she was literally breathing hard.
It is not a coincidence that the Democrats leaked these emails to the fake news this morning ahead of Republicans reopening the government.
Running out of breath, lying, talking about, oh, don't you think this government has been they are trying to steal Trump's, light, his achievements. He's reopened the government, and that's what needs to be talked about. Oh, it is a Democrat, hoax. You're talking about transparency, and then at the same time you're talking about hoax. They are going to jail. They will be jailed, like they will even throw the keys. The keys of their jails, they will throw them in the toilet. Or at least in the ocean. Maybe a toilet or an ocean. That's where those keys are going to be thrown. Because you cannot tell me. The panic. Emergency meetings. What are you trying to hide? You are trying to force people to redact the signatures. You have heard the Congress lady that was, sworn in. Last, she came with the victims. She's like, My signature, guys, the signatures are full now. And you know what? If there's anything that unites the American people, I love this drama because, man, it makes you question everything you believed about this so-called United States of America. It makes you look into the movies that we have looked at and watched. And, you know, this is like a movie playing. Hollywood movies of billionaires probably being, you know, blackmailed or something like that. That's what it looks like. But this is not a blackmail. This is real. Like, this is playing in real time. The signatures are there. And what unites Americans, both MAGAs and the other sides of everybody, they all want. Actually, that's what makes it nice. That's what makes the drama even beautiful. Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't love some drama, like, for real? Even MAGAs are literally crushing their, like, with these emails, they're like, release. Okay, people are like, oh, it's a hoax? Well, why are you holding on this? Release them. Release them. The panic is written all over. Trump was expected to be so happy he would be making a lot of noise. The way you know Trump. The guy is freezing. And he's... People are saying he's shitting his pants already. For those that are questioning, they're like, makes you wonder, maybe he's not, like, he didn't do anything wrong, but then he surely knows. Yeah, knowing is okay. Okay? It will be okay. But the thing is, he denied knowing anything. He denied knowing anything. And now, the emails are implicating him. And it would have been okay too. Maybe, what does he know? Maybe he knows whatever that was happening and he didn't say anything. Okay, you could literally, you could get a fair judgment there. But the fact that this man's name is literally sounded in Russia at what, it makes you question. A lot of people, there's a lot of conspiracies of, oh, he might be a Russian plant, but it really makes you wonder. It's not what he knows. What do people know about him that he's super afraid of, that the moment that they start talking about this and these files come out, there's just so much that is going to be known about him that he never wanted. We could understand that he's a billionaire and hanging out with fellow billionaires. That would be okay. I don't know. But Americans are like, release the files. MAGAs are like, release the files. So on this one, there's no division. And me too, from this side of the world, I'm like, release the files. If you're not in the files, release them. Who are you protecting if not yourself? Because if you're not in the files, then you definitely are protecting somebody. And from the look of things, the Hollywood bubble has been busted. I feel like the Dems, the House Dems, are using this to their own advantage, because this man would have been everywhere shouting and yapping and yapping and yapping. But he is quiet. So you guys are holding him where it hurts the most. And I promise you guys, if you don't get what you want out of him, because this man, he can literally give you free healthcare. That's what it looks like. He can give you free healthcare instead of releasing the files. What do I know? I'm just this young woman observer who cut her hair. enjoying the drama, and I think it's actually nice. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you're enjoying this. I love seeing him on the line because this man acts like he's holier than thou. Yeah, this man he's literally demonized the world, but himself. And now that the world needs to know the truth, it looks like he's not willing to let that one out. Let me know what you think. Like, share. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I love you guys. Stay safe. May God watch over you and protect you. See you guys later. Bye.